Wickles has done is just taken a pretty prudent business decision. I think, the government's not banning Jordan Peterson. In fact, he was led in the country a few weeks ago. So I think it's actually quite a good thing that Wickles has done to say, we've heard these complaints about Jordan Peterson and his relationship or links to the alt-right and to Islamophobia. We're going to take the book off the shelves. We're going to think about it. We're going to study it. And then we'll see where we stand. Actually, I think it was quite a sensible and prudent thing to do, because the accusations against Jordan Peterson are very, very serious. He goes around saying things like Islam is a totalizing system. He won't even give it the credit of being a religion. He says it's a totalizing system.
And yet, as people have pointed out, Wickles will still sell Mein Kampf, but they've banned Jordan Peterson.
I think there's a difference there again, a distinction there again between that historical book and Jordan Peterson's books, which are very much doing active harm at the moment. But it might be a distinction without a difference. Wickles might also want to look into that, which would be a good idea.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Does that mean I have to remove my Jordan Peterson interview from a couple of years ago from the RNZ website? There's a thought.
Please do.
Okay, well, we'll see what our bosses have to say. Meanwhile, a lot of Jordan Peterson fans are coming through on that one. I haven't got enough time to read them all out. I just wanted to sort of read a small. I've been meaning to read this all week. It was about Dame Anne Salmon's interview. Ati Maria Wallace, Dame Anne Salmon was a voice of truth and reason. I'm a 53-year-old white woman of Kaitahu European descent. My first experience of discrimination was when I was about 6 years old, standing at the counter of DIC Beefs with my mum. Mum used to take me and one of my sisters to go on the bus to Christchurch to Friday night shopping. My mum asked to try on a pair of gloves for a wedding she was going to, and I couldn't understand why the middle-aged shop assistant, a white woman, was staring at my mother with hate in her eyes. We need to challenge ourselves and our fears about anyone who's different, looks differently, culturally or spiritually. Actually, in fact, racism, anti-Islam, anti-Asian, anti-treaty is us. Truth to power, and love RNZ. It's the gold standard. It's a nice comment to end the week, don't you think, Morgan, Katie?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's nice to end on a note of small optimism.
And let's hope that was very much an incident that happened in the past. As a historian, things are constantly change, attitudes change, hegemonies change, and I think it's really important to recognise that and to capture those attitudes that hopefully belong in the past, and to make sure they are in the past, and that we decolonise the present.
Very good. We have to go out, but Morgan, Godfrey, Katie Pickles, thank you very much, Katie Pickle rather, for being on the show with me this afternoon.
Thank you.
And that's the show for today. 1 week since the Christchurch mosque attacks. Thanks to our panellists there. And we're going to leave you with some of the powerful words spoken by the Imam of the Al-Noor Mosque, Gamal Fuda, speaking in Hagley Park earlier this afternoon. Allahu Akbar, Allahu
Akbar. To the families of the victims, your loved ones did not die in vain. Their blood has watered the seeds of hope. Through them, the world will see the beauty of Islam and the beauty of our unity. We are here for one purpose: that hate will be undone and love will redeem us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. Love will redeem us. New Zealand is unbreakable. The words of the Imam from today.
RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, ko Susana Leia tawa tēnei. 1 week on from the Christchurch mosque attacks, New Zealanders in all walks of life have been honouring those who were killed and showing solidarity with the Muslim community. People have gathered at mosques throughout the country, in some cases forming human chains around them to keep them safe during Friday prayers inside. 2-minute silence was observed earlier this afternoon, just after the Muslim call to prayer was broadcast live on RNZ and TVNZ at 1:30. Addressing a crowd of thousands in Christchurch's North Hagley Park, the Imam of the Al Noor Mosque, Gamal Fuda, thanked New Zealanders for the love and compassion they've shown these past 7 days. He said the 50 people killed did not die in vain.
We have shown that New Zealand is unbreakable and that the world can see in us an example of love and unity. We are broken-hearted, but we are not broken.
Gamal Fuda. 26 more victims of last Friday's shootings are being buried at a combined funeral this afternoon. About 5,000 people have gathered at the Memorial Park Cemetery in Linwood for the ceremonies. Laura Dooney reports.
The crowd was silent as the first of a group of bodies to be buried began to be carried towards their graves. From within the marquee where the bodies lie, a call of Allah Akbar, or God is the greatest, was briefly heard. Among those being buried today is 3-year-old Mukad Ibrahim, the youngest victim of the terror attack. Ko Laura Dooney aho.
A Muslim leader says today's events will signal the start of a grieving process for the families. Anwar Ghani says their loss will take a long time to heal, but he has been deeply struck by their immediate response.
The way they describe it makes you feel like that you want to melt on the ground and disappear because of the compassion which they show and with the forgiveness which they have in their heart. So it's incredible, and I think it is nothing but from God.
Anwar Ghani. All Black Sonny Bill Williams, a devout Muslim, was among the crowd in Hagley Park this afternoon. He told reporters he's been proud of the way New Zealanders have embraced the Islamic faith since the attacks, but hopes for more acceptance.
People don't really know what Islam is, and I feel like to get that light you need that knowledge, and you need to understand what Islam is so it can give that light which will get rid of the darkness.
Sonny Bill Williams says the charity he partnered with for the victims of the attacks has raised more than $200,000. Auckland's Mayor Phil Goff, who observed 2-minute silence with the people gathered at the Al Mustafa Masjid in Otahuhu, says New Zealanders' response to the shootings is the biggest show of community solidarity he's seen in his lifetime.
The incredibly positive outcome has been just to see people come together in a way that over my whole lifetime I've never seen happen in New Zealand. Come together with sympathy, with support and love.
Phil Goff. In Wellington, thousands of people turned up to make a human chain outside the Islamic Centre in the suburb of Kilbirnie. Wearing sparkly hijabs and big grins, Salma, Sarah and Sahida were happy to see so many outside their mosque.
Lots of people supporting us, which is good. And this is the first time I've seen this much people come to Kilbirnie Mosque.
Hours covered the entire entranceway leading to the place of worship. A letter from the Human Rights Foundation saying it persistently raised concerns with the government about the rise of Islamophobia has been sent to the Attorney General. With more on this, here's political reporter Gia Garrick.
The letter, signed by Human Rights Foundation Chair Peter Hosking, also raised Islamophobia with what it says is an intrusion into the civil liberties and rights of the Muslim community, including over-surveillance and monitoring by government agencies, namely the Security Intelligence Service and Customs. It says the foundation had been seeking dialogue and change from these agencies. It now wants the government to rule out a ministerial or public inquiry and instead have it run by the justice sector as a coronial inquest. The foundation says that would ensure the inquiry remains at arm's length from the executive and is not overseen by officials or politicians from the agencies being investigated. From Parliament, Gia Garrick.
It's 5:05. To sport, and the Japanese Super Rugby franchise the Sunwolves will be dropped at the end of next season. The governing body, SANZAR, has confirmed a 14-team round-robin competition from 2021. Its chief executive, Andy Marinos, says the Japanese Rugby Union has advised it's not in a position to financially underwrite the Sunwolves after 2020, and the structure is not the best pathway for the development of their players. Under the new format in 2021, the current 3-conference system will be scrapped and finals involving the top 6 teams will run for 3 weeks. The Blues assistant coach Tom Coventry believes they're tracking in the right direction for tonight's Super Rugby match against the Highlanders in Auckland. After losing their first 3 games, the Blues picked up their first win of the season against the Sunwolves. Coventry says they're optimistic about what they're capable of.
We're a team that's forming and coming together with some new coaching staff and also the way that we're trying to play the game. So it's been a little bit of a learning period for us, but I think we're getting through it and trainings are getting better. The stats say that we're getting better in aspects of our game that we pride ourselves upon, so some good signs.
Tom Coventry. The head coach of the New Zealand women's cricket team, Heidi Tiffin, has confirmed she won't be reapplying for her job when her contract expires in July. Tiffin has been on leave as a result of the findings from a review of the team's disappointing World T20 campaign last year. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, there's a meat and 2 veg edition of Country Life. Well, 4 or 5 veg, really. Lawrence Arabia is our Friday night live act, and we have a sonic tonic dedicated to the light, both physical and metaphorical. Driving out the darkness on Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow for Northland to Taranaki, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country. Fine, but areas of cloud or fog morning and night. Isolated showers mainly during the afternoon and evenings. Some possibly heavy about Coromandel and Western Bay of Plenty. For Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, fine spells. Isolated showers mainly inland. Whanganui through to Wellington, also Wairarapa, fine apart from areas of morning cloud. Nelson, Marlborough, Canterbury and Otago. Fine but areas of cloud or fog morning and night. Isolated afternoon and evening showers about the ranges and foothills. For Buller and Westland, cloudy periods today, mainly fine tomorrow. Fiordland, cloudy periods with a few light showers. Southland, fine apart from areas of fog tomorrow morning. And at the Chatham Islands, cloudy periods with 1 or 2 showers. It's 8 minutes past 5. You're with RNZ National.
Thanks, Susanna, and you're listening to Checkpoint. I'm Lisa Owen. Hate will be undone and love will redeem us. Those were the words from Imam Gamal Foda as thousands gathered in Christchurch at Hagley Park and around the country to mark an unprecedented terror attack just 1 week ago. Just metres from the Al Noor Mosque on Deans Avenue, Imam Latif started with a call to prayer. After the 2-minute silence, Imam Foda, the Imam who was leading prayers in the Deans Avenue Mosque last Friday and who spoke to Checkpoint moments after the gunman struck, stepped forward to conduct the prayers and to give a powerful speech to the nation. They are not just martyrs of Islam, but martyrs of this country, New Zealand, he said. We hope to cross live shortly to our reporter Logan Church. He was at Hagley Park and this is how the day unfolded.
Shoulder to shoulder in Hagley Park. This was a show of unity that couldn't be further from the mayhem and terror unleashed just metres from here last Friday. It's a sight New Zealand has never seen before. Lengths of fences surrounded a large carpeted area, makeshift prayer mats virtually in the shadows of the Deans Ave Mosque. Thousands of devout Muslims came. Behind them, an estimated 15,000 others wanting to show their support. Some were in wheelchairs, still recovering from bullet wounds. About 1:15, the Prime Minister arrived, escorted by Naitahu, taking a moment outside the mosque to reflect on the tragedy that took place there.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the believers in their mutual kindness, compassion and sympathy are just like one body. When any part of the body suffers, the whole body feels pain. New Zealand mourns with you. We are one.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Then the call to prayer, broadcast for the first time to the entire nation.
Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha.
2 minutes of silence followed. The only sound in the entire park, leaves rustling in the wind, camera shutters clicking, and a distinct whirl of helicopters overhead. Imam Gamal Fuda, who was leading prayers at the Al Noor Mosque when the gunman opened fire, spoke to the crowd.
Last Friday, I stood in this mosque and saw hatred and rage in the eyes of the terrorists who killed and martyred 50 innocent people, wounded 42, and broke the hearts of millions around the world. Today, from the same place, I look out and I see the love and compassion in the eyes of thousands of fellow New Zealanders and human beings from across the globe that fill the hearts of millions more who are not with us physically, but in spirit.
His speech was punctuated by spontaneous applause throughout.
This terrorist sought to tear our nation apart with an evil ideology that has torn the world apart. But instead, we have shown that New Zealand is unbreakable and that the world can see in us but instead, we have shown that New Zealand is unbreakable and that the world can see in us an example of love and unity. We are broken-hearted, but we are not broken. We are alive. We are together. We are determined to not let anyone divide us.
Imam Fuda spoke at length about the rise of Islamophobia and sent out a plea to those who have the power to stop it.
Islamophobia kills. Muslims have felt its pain for many years. It has killed before in Canada, and its brutality was used against teens in Norway and against innocent Muslims in the UK, USA, and other countries around the world. Islamophobia is real. It's a targeted campaign to influence people to dehumanize and irrationally fear Muslims, to fear what we wear, to fear the choice of food we eat, to fear the way we pray, and to fear the way we practice our faith. We call upon governments around the world, including New Zealand and the neighboring countries, to bring an end to hate speech and the politics of fear. The rise of white supremacy and right-wing extremism is a great global threat to mankind. And this must end now.
And finally, the prayers themselves. Thousands of Muslims praying.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد.
Today's prayers seem to comfort those injured in the attack. Mustafa is wheelchair bound. He has a problem with his liver and still has a bullet fragment in his rib. But Mustafa says in the end, the terrorist failed.
He didn't let us down. He made us even stronger. He made people realise Islam has no terrorism. Islam is about peace and love.
There is still a long road ahead for Christchurch and especially our Muslim communities. Police will hand control of the two mosques at the centre of these attacks back to the Muslim community tomorrow. But it's unclear when either the Al Noor Mosque on Deans Ave or the Linwood Ave Mosque will reopen. In the meantime, our city will continue to grieve, to cry and to mourn, but to remain defiant too.
Oh Allah, grant our nation and country, New Zealand, peace, security, and protect it and its people from all evils.
In Christchurch, for Checkpoint, Logan Church.
And for the first time, that Muslim call to prayer was broadcast across New Zealand today, and of course it was followed by 2 minutes silence. New Zealanders of all faiths, races and from all over the country listened to the prayers and paused for silence as the country stood still in unity with the Muslim community. Here's Nita Blake-Person.
It was a scene of unity here in Christchurch with people gathered in Hagley Park, women wearing headscarves as a show of solidarity for their Muslim sisters. A week on from the attack, people are still reflecting on events that have changed not only Christchurch, but New Zealand and the world. How was today's service for you?
It was really, really touching. It was profound. I'm almost speechless. It was just to know that the Muslim community know how held they are and how there's no separation between them and us. You know, this is a country for all of us, diversity, love and compassion, and it's obviously cut us all just as deep as anyone else.
What was the atmosphere like during that service?
It was heavy, it was really solemn, it was really, you could almost just feel it in the air. It was, all our hearts were in the same space, just very present. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Today for me was pretty special to be here as part of the Ngaitahu whānau and support group for the Muslims, and especially to listen to their prayers. It's the first time that I've ever listened to their prayers, which I felt was, as from a minister's perspective of my church, I thought it was pretty deep. I felt their sorrow, felt the hurt, felt the pain.
We don't know anybody here, didn't know of anybody here, but I was sitting back home in Australia, and when I heard the news, the first thing I wanted to do was get here. And it's just unbelievable, some of the stories we've heard, visiting the hospitals.
Would you mind sharing with me maybe one of those stories that you have found to be really inspirational? Or?
I'll give you a little bit of what one brother said to me, and that was, do not let the religion go because of this. Stick together, make it grow even more. Let people see the beautiful side of this religion, not what we've seen. This is a brother that was shot in the head, shot in the back, and this is what he was telling me. And I'm talking to you now, and my hairs on my body is standing. It's just unbelievable.
I don't think it's no shock that Christchurch is quite a racist city, and New Zealand has got a lot of things to answer for in terms of its own racism. So I'm not shocked, but I am deeply disappointed that New Zealand's kind of enabled this, even though the guys from Australia, I think, New Zealand's got a lot of work to do to try and make up for this to the Muslim community.
So why be here today? What's today about for you and in general, do you think?
To support the community. I think it's our duty, especially me as a white person, to show support for a community that's non-white, that has come here to make a home in New Zealand, to show that they're welcome here, that me and my family welcome them here. What I'm hoping is that this kind of rips the band-aid off of New Zealand's underlying racist issues, that everyone's here today to show their support, but hopefully that goes deeper, and where people think about their own actions, making sure they're not enabling these actions on a very basic level, even just enabling racist jokes, that sort of thing. I hope that today is the start of something new for New Zealand.
Why was it important for you to come down here today?
Just to show the Muslim community and the wider community that we're here in full support, and to show the rest of the world that we're all one. I mean, it's important for our presence to be here, not only for the Muslim community, but to show our community that we're strong, we're here, and we stand as one.
And what will you take away from today?
That we're just going to keep becoming stronger and stronger, and any action of hatred in the world just needs to be responded with actions and testaments of love, and that's what's happened. And I hope that we can show the world an example of how to respond to such things by banding together and showing love.
I'm sorry to everyone affected, the whole community, whether they've lost someone or not, that this has happened. It's happened here.
Those are just some of the sentiments shared here today, with an overwhelming sense that those messages of unity and solidarity must carry on into the future.
And Nita Blake-Pearson is now outside the Dean's Avenue Mosque in Hagley Park and joins us now. Nita.
Kia ora, Lisa. Yeah, I'm less than about 100 metres away from the Al Noor Mosque, where it was just a week ago. Very, very different scenes. Tonight, it's a pretty pensive kind of atmosphere. A lot of people moving through the park as they head home from work, or they're on bike rides walking the dog, but almost everyone's pausing to reflect as they walk past this area. All the flowers which had been just beyond the cordon down the road here, last night police and volunteers helped move them in front of the Al Noor Mosque, and they now surround about 6 trees out here in Hagley Park out the front. There's still police cordon tape up, and there are still armed officers, and it's still an ongoing situation, but it is understood that the mosque will be handed back to the community tomorrow, not knowing when those first prayers will be in there. But it's not far from here that we had that huge service today. Among the people, thousands who turned out for those prayers, was proud Muslim Sonny Bill Williams, the All Black. He spoke of Islam as a religion of peace when he talked to media after that service. He challenged New Zealanders to learn more about the faith, and he also paid his respects to the families of those who died.
To the victims of those that were tragically taken away from us on last Friday, my thoughts and condolences are with them. Got brother Abdul Rahim here. He lost his younger brother on Friday. For myself personally, I just wanted to come down here as a proud Muslim and a proud New Zealander to show that firstly, as a Muslim, that I'm proud to be a New Zealander, and then also come down here and just show some love and help out where I can. So I thought I would be the one giving strength, but last night when I was sitting for a couple of hours with Abdul Rahman and his brothers, I was the one that was being affected and getting strength from them. You know, after the first emotional hit came, then it was my thoughts were, how can I be practical about helping the situation? Obviously, I understand that I am an All Black. I do play for the Blues, but I also am a Muslim. So I knew that, you know, although being a naturally shy person, I knew that I had to step out and be vulnerable and step into that zone and lead in this space and just show that, you know, we are Muslims, but we are humans and we are New Zealanders as well. So I think, you know, touching on that, I just want to say to the general public, to my fellow rugby men, rugby boys, to our employers, I just want to say thank you from my heart, because it's been humbling. It's been it's obviously such a tragic event, but just the way that people have reached out has shown me that they care. So I think now I just put it to them, put it to the New Zealand public to find out about Islam, because it is truly a religion of peace and love. And as we've seen from the khutbah, from the talk from the brother on stage, he just shared some beautiful messages that are the core and the essence of what Islam is. It's been beautiful, the people reaching out throughout the week to myself, to the Muslim community, but it shows one thing, that we don't know what Islam is. You know, people don't really know what Islam is. And I feel like to get that light, you need that knowledge, and you need to understand what Islam is, so it can give that light, which will get rid of the darkness.
As thousands of Muslims returned to their mosques for Friday prayers today, their wider communities also went along to show their solidarity and love. There were hugs, flowers and an outpouring of love surrounded mosques right across New Zealand today, as New Zealanders marked a week since 50 people lost their lives. Jessie Chang reports.
In Auckland, students sang Waiata as about 500 gathered at the Masjid I Umar in Mount Roskill to pay their respects. Community members formed a human chain outside to protect those praying.
New Zealand isn't about hate, but we are here. We love them no matter what their religion or their colour is.
I brought 50 red roses down for them and that put them inside the door.
Hanif Patel, who is a regular worshipper at the mosque, says the outpouring of support from New Zealanders has been absolutely beautiful.
I think we are leading in the world, put it this way, to show the compassion and love for everybody else. You know, of course I'm a Muslim, but I'm proud to be Kiwi.
The mosque's chairman, Ahmed Bamji, says local children have even been giving up their own teddy bears to place at the mosque. He says they will all be donated to the Starship Hospital. Mr. Bamji says he was overwhelmed by the love.
That's the only word we remember now, is thank you. And I just want to say thank you, all the New Zealanders, no matter what, you know, which denomination, where they come from, what colour, creed and religion they come, we can only say thank you to you.
In Whangarei, the Anglican church bell rang out 50 times for the fallen. Worshippers left their shoes at the church door, wore headscarves and tied green ribbons on their wrists to pray for peace and show support for Muslims in service. Imam Suhail Musa says the support has lifted the spirits of his community and defeated the purpose of the Christchurch mosque killer.
So it was a really clear message for the offender, the terrorist, that we are united, we are one, there's no place for hatred in New Zealand. He tried to deliver a different message, but this is the response, not only the Muslim response, it is the response of everyone living in New Zealand. He failed.
About 200 people turned out to the Al Mustafa Masjid in Otahuhu, where students from the nearby college brought a 20-metre long paper chain covered in messages of love to hang around the outer gate. At the Avondale Islamic Centre, locals of all ages came to mourn with the Muslim community.
I came down here last Saturday because this is our local mosque, just to pay my respects. I think everyone in New Zealand is hurting.
I feel pretty shattered at the moment because I'm Māori as well, and to walk into there and see them at a vulnerable stage, oh, this is just terrible.
We made a book with the whole school. We did some hearts.
About 1,500 people turned out to the mosque in Tauranga, many forming a human chain. They were invited inside, but there were so many people they spilled out onto the street, with some worshippers setting up their prayer mats in the forecourt. And thousands of Wellingtonians also created a giant human chain outside the Kilburnie Mosque. As the Muslim community finished their prayers, they were met with applause from those waiting outside. Members of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Sikh, Christian and Jewish religions were all there. Rabbi Joe Alandaka says the Muslim community rallied around when the Jewish community was attacked in Pittsburgh, and they wanted to show their support here in New Zealand.
It could have easily been our community.
Yeah, it's a common
enemy. Exactly the same things that were said about this community, or it could be said about the Jewish community as far as being at risk. And we just want to show that we're very similar. The Muslims are our brothers and sisters.
In Dunedin, an emotional haka was performed outside the Al Huda Mosque as a show of solidarity. The street was packed as hundreds of people joined the Circle of Peace but remained silent during prayers in the mosque. A Muslim woman says she was touched.
It's overwhelming and unexpected, but very touching. And it's really nice to see so many support, and it's not something I've ever imagined before in my life.
She described being inside the mosque, the original target of the accused gunman, as quiet, calm and quite solemn, but filled her with hope. The fence outside the mosque was adorned with flowers and garlands, covered with messages of hope and support. Across the country, the message is clear. We are united. Mō te hōtaka o te ahi nei, ko Jesse Chang tēnei.
Now, 26 people who died in the mosque attacks are being buried in Christchurch this evening. The victims are all being laid to rest at the Linwood Park Cemetery. And the families have allowed media to observe, and our reporter Logan Church joins us now from near the cemetery via live view. Can you tell us a little about the services, Logan?
Just 6 to 8 people.
Hi Lisa, yes, we're standing outside the Memorial Park Cemetery where 26 people who lost their lives in last week's terrible attacks on those two mosques in Christchurch are being laid to rest. The funeral service behind me got underway at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, and we've seen from where media have been invited to stand and report on the proceedings, we have seen the bodies being carried across and laid down into the graves to rest. Hundreds, if not thousands of people were at the cemetery behind me, and actually all of the roads around the cemetery are completely filled with cars. It was actually quite incredible driving around before. A lot of the neighbours or the people who live alongside the cemetery have written messages of support in chalk or paint on their fence. One message says, "We are very sorry that we lost you, our Muslim brothers and sisters." Another one said, please rest. A lot of heartfelt messages from our community here around the Memorial Park Cemetery, and that's surely been well received and much appreciated from those attending the funeral behind me.
Thanks for joining us. That is Logan Church, who's in Christchurch there outside the burial services for 26 people who died in last week's shootings. Coming up on Checkpoint on RNZ National, we're at the Ponsonby Mosque that's opened its doors to the public, and a message from Jordan's Prince to New Zealand in the wake of the attacks. As always, we would love your feedback. Don't forget, you can text in on 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. We're on Facebook as well, Checkpoint, or send us an email, checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. But first, here's Susana Leatawa with the headlines.
Tens of thousands of people have marked the one-week anniversary of last Friday's mosque killings. People gathered at mosques throughout the country, and a 2-minute silence was observed just after the Muslim call to prayer at 1:30. The Imam of the Al-Nur Mosque, Gamal Fuda, told a crowd of 20,000 gathered at the Hagley Park commemoration in Christchurch that the Muslim community is heartbroken but not broken, and New Zealand is unbreakable. He also spoke of the pain of Islamophobia and warned against the white supremacist movement, describing it as a global threat. 26 more victims of last Friday's shootings are being buried at a combined funeral this afternoon. About 5,000 people have gathered at the Memorial Park Cemetery in Linwood for the ceremonies. Among those being buried today is 3-year-old Muhammad Ibrahim, the youngest victim of the terror attack. A letter from the Human Rights Foundation saying it persistently raised concerns with the government about increasing Islamophobia has been sent to the Attorney General. The letter also raised Islamophobia with what it says is an intrusion into the civil liberties and rights of the Muslim community, including over-surveillance and monitoring by government agencies, namely the Security Intelligence Service and Customs. In other news, 3 crew have been rescued from a sinking crayfish boat northwest of the Chatham Islands, thanks to a floating distress beacon recently made compulsory on commercial vessels. The fishermen had mild hypothermia and cuts and bruises after perching on the bow of the boat for almost almost an hour. Search and Rescue says the beacon saved their lives. The Auckland Lines company Vector has been fined $3.5 million because of excessive power cuts. Vector says it acknowledges the inconvenience outages can cause customers, but the breaches were not cynical or designed to maximise profit. Those are the headlines. Our next news and weather update is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. Let's turn now to business with Nona Peltier, who's joined me here in the studio. Nona, regional confidence. So what, the car's in reverse here?
It really is. It's backed all the way up, yes, indeed. So in the December quarter, the regional confidence was, up across every region of the country, and now it's down in 8 of the 11 regions that are looked at by the Westpac survey. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
It's disturbing, but I'll tell you what, the survey was taken just after the tax working group's proposals on capital gains, etc. And that's when the survey was taken, and it's really taken a dive, and most especially in Auckland. It was very pessimistic indeed. And some of the other falls were in Nelson, Marlborough, West Coast, and Canterbury. Yeah, pretty severe. And, well, I guess what you'd expect, people are concerned about their properties, and in Auckland, the housing market here with the investors and so on, it's a big deal.
So talking of the tax working group, investors seem to be taking action ahead of the government making its final decision on what exactly is going to happen.
Yeah, so so this is just recent, right? So recently in Canterbury, and one of the companies that look after investments, which is Hamilton Hinden Green, one of their investment advisors, Jeremy Sullivan, he wrote a piece about what's actually happening, and he said that a good number of his clients own properties. They're selling up large, ahead of the time, so that's what's happening in the market there. A lot of sales, and of course,
in anticipation of a capital gains tax on rental properties or second houses.
Exactly, and they're selling up, and they're putting their money into the share market because the expectation is that it won't be as severe, and maybe those the capital gains tax won't apply to shares. That's the feeling, but that even if it does, it would still be a better deal than having a capital gains on your property. So interesting times, definitely. Yes, indeed.
Markets?
Well, good news on the market, I'd have to say. Our market is at another high. We went up nearly 1%. That's 90 points to 9,551. Now that compares with the ASX across the Tasman there. They were up about 0.5%. So we're really strong. And that's in line with what we're seeing in Asia. Asia is really upbeat. 6.5-month highs there too. With this the tech stocks really boosted in the US overnight. And that's made people feel quite positive despite the economic news over the United States. So again, lots of volatility, but our dollar is steady. It's high, I have to say. 68.9 US cents, 96.9 Australian, 52.4 pence. Watch this space with the Brexit and how it affects the pound.
We need to get a little buzzer for you instead of watch Brexit and watch Donald Trump. Maybe you could just hit the buzzer.
Yes. Watch this space.
Thanks, Nona. That's Nona with your Friday business wrap. Well, 4 of Auckland's mosques are currently holding prayer sessions which are open to the public. As well as prayers, there'll be speeches by leaders of other religious groups and civic leaders. The president of the New Zealand Muslim Association, Kalak Kishkari, is at the Al Jami Mosque in Ponsonby, and our reporter Alex Perrottet asked him how he felt after a week of outpourings of grief across the nation.
Well, I have no words to describe, to be honest. I mean, we have been overwhelmed by the love and compassion from people. The whole of New Zealand, starting from the Prime Minister down to businesses, down to sort of ordinary people. We are actually still coming to grips with it. I mean, so obviously we have been in a shock. We still are. We're going over the grief and working through it. But this love that's been sort of given to us, it's helping us through the process, and we really appreciate that.
Earlier today in Christchurch at the memorial, the Imam who was in the Al Noor Mosque, Imam Galil Fawda, gave a stirring speech. Already on the airwaves, people are saying it's the best speech they've heard in this country. How does that make you feel?
Great. I haven't actually heard the speech, so I couldn't really comment on that, but I met him yesterday, And when he gave an adhan yesterday, there were a lot of people that broke down in tears. And it is a very emotional time for the community. Whole of New Zealand, actually. I mean, the whole of New Zealand is mourning, and they're all really trying to come to the grips. A country like New Zealand, we always thought was safe. There was nothing like this going to happen, then all of a sudden something like this happens. Look, I'm confident that despite what happened as a country, we're a strong country, we will come out of it, and I think better than ever before and stronger.
Some people have been saying they're still afraid. They're too afraid to even come and pray in their mosque, in their local mosque down in Christchurch and other parts of the country. What's your message to them?
Well, look, that's definitely the case. People have expressed that to me as well. There is still a fear in there, and it's time always heals. There's a reassurance from the government, there's a reassurance from the police. They've been with us. So, look, New Zealand, the public is with us. You can see, I mean, say if that person tried to divide us, he miserably failed. He got us together far closer than ever before. So all I say to our people and community is New Zealanders are with us. We're in one nation. So any impact on the Muslims of New Zealand is impact on New Zealand. So that's how New Zealanders see it.
What do you say to all the people who've been coming here to Ponsonby as well as the other mosques, leaving thousands of flowers, of bouquets, of messages of hope, of reassurance that you are safe? What's your response back to them?
Thank you. Keep that love flowing. We really appreciate it, and it's actually helping us to heal through the process. And I really want to appeal to all of them and request them, come in more often to our mosques, come and join us, get to know each other more. I think this has provided that opportunity for people to get together more often and celebrate our diversity, celebrate what we are as New Zealand, and get to know each other and let's get rid of those negative things that people make assume and they're necessarily not right assumptions.
Alex Perrottet and cameraman Dan Cook there with the president of the New Zealand Muslim Association, Ilaq Kashkari. Foreign dignitaries have been visiting New Zealand to speak with their citizens who survived the attacks and to express their condolences. And while many leaders around the world have spoken of their support for New Zealand, controversially, the Turkish president Recep Tayyip Erdogan has not only used footage uploaded by the accused gunmen in campaign rallies, but he has also threatened to send New Zealanders and Australians who come to his country with anti-Islam sentiment back home in a casket. Foreign Minister Winston Peters was expected to land in Istanbul a short time ago, where he's flown in to effectively set the record straight. But one visiting royal, Prince Al Hassan bin Talal of Jordan, says populism and extremism is not characteristic of New Zealand. He sat down with political reporter Craig McCulloch in Wellington this afternoon.
1 week on, I guess, from this tragedy, what's your message to New Zealand as you arrive here?
The world has to take heed of what has happened in New Zealand, and the concept of a global democratic association of people, citizens' assembly, is so important today, because with strong powers and smaller powers in the world, it is simply impossible not to take heed of the goodness of the Kota Hitana of New Zealanders, their solidarity and their oneness. And I think that a world at war with itself can only find serenity in the example of the compassion and the love that New Zealanders have shown to the other.
How did news of this attack reverberate in Jordan?
Well, New Zealand is a utopia for many people who leave because of war, strife, unfair treatment in their home countries, and of course we are a cosmopolitan country. And I think the feeling was one of dullness and anguish, that even in a country so far away, in this beautiful paradise, that evil should pervade. And it was a feeling again of anger, that once again co-believers should be targeted But at the same time, I think after the visit of the Pope to Abu Dhabi and the meeting with the leader of the Azhar, the Muslim-Christian continuing conversation with which I've been involved for decades, they were talking about our shared humanity. Whether you believe or not, don't believe, the main thing is to stand up for human values and human dignity. And that was, I think, the general reaction, a very mature reaction, but a very sad one, particularly for the families of the bereaved who've flown out.
You talked of some anger. You will have seen in Turkey, President Erdogan, strong words from him, what many have seen as a rebuke of Australia and New Zealand. Was that helpful?
Well, in Jordan, we commemorate the Anzac Day victims. We also commemorate the Turkish soldiers fallen, so as in the spirit of Gallipoli, we shall continue to do that. And I don't want to say anything more about current politics. All I do know is that populism and extremism is not characteristic of New Zealand, and I think that that should shine through. I hope you will not be caught in a trap of the war of words that is a war of polarity, of hatred. I hope you will live up always to conviviality, of compassion and respect for the other.
You've accused gunmen, of course, as Australian. The government's made a point of pointing that out, of making clear that he's not a New Zealander. But does New Zealand bear any responsibility for this sort of action?
Well, I think that there is no fallible security in the world. The only fallible security is to acknowledge the fact that we are all living in a vulnerability-based approach. There is no such thing as a status-based approach. You are not safe just because you're a state. People make up that state. And proximity, of course, of Australia is something that you are more familiar with than I am. But I think that people who rise above culture and the intimacy of culture are creating their own cocoon, and would be very difficult to trace in a situation like the tragedy that we are all grieving over.
New Zealand's acted quickly. The Prime Minister yesterday announcing a ban imminently on military-style semi-automatics and assault rifles. What does New Zealand need to do moving forward to prevent any atrocity like this ever again?
At the international level, New Zealand has a voice, and has a voice that could find solidarity with many, many, many countries and peoples. And my hope is that this opportunity would not be wasted in terms of emphasizing that real democracy is democratic security for everyone. Bigger, stronger, weaker, poorer, it doesn't matter. The main thing is to work on the right to respect, as we once worked on the right to protect.
And that was Prince Al Hassan bin Talal of Jordan, speaking there to our political reporter Craig McCulloch in Wellington. There are vigils being held across the country tonight to mark 1 week since the deadly attack in Christchurch. We can go now live to the Al Jami Mosque in Ponsonby in Auckland, where Alex Perrottet has joined many people and religious leaders and civic leaders who have turned out there this evening. Alex, tell us a little bit about the mood there.
Hi, Lisa. I'm actually talking to you from inside the mosque building. That's because everything that's going on is happening outside. There's been chairs and marquees set up just because of the crowds at the 2-minute silence that the nation observed earlier today. I'm told that the whole of Vermont Street here, where the mosque is situated, was full of people. There's police everywhere. People just wandered down from Ponsonby Road from their offices to mark their respects. And now the crowds are gathering again. We've already had a few speeches, but interestingly, there was quite a jovial mood, the MC joking with people, and also very happy to break protocol. Usually, just as we see in other cultures, we see the men in Muslim gatherings lining up the front, particularly before the prayers. The women are often not inside the mosque or sitting out the back, and the MC welcoming all the women who wanted to come forward to sit in the chairs to join the dignitaries. There's religious leaders here. I've spotted both Anglican, Catholic, other Christian leaders, Jewish leaders. Carmel Cipollone is here, as well as Nikki Kay. We've also had a speech from the Mayor, Phil Goff, and of course Ikalaka Kashkari, the president of the New Zealand Muslim Association, has been speaking as well.
And you mentioned some of the people there, some of the dignitaries, but what about in terms of just everyday people? Who's turned up?
People from all walks of life, Lisa, are here, and lots of colours, and those colours most memorably being shown through the headwear that people are wearing. That people were told it's not compulsory, but if you like, you can wear the headscarf, and we can see people throughout today have been doing that voluntarily. Obviously, people following the indication that they must dress very modestly when coming to the mosque, to the Al Masjid here in Ponsonby. But it's amazing to see. Even there's a policewoman in the front row sitting there, and sort of matching her blue uniform. She has the blue headscarf as well. But you really can see a mix of ages, young children. We have older men. We have people that have their dog on a leash outside the gate that have just wandered up from their house. So and a very, very heavy police presence to sort of intermingled with that. People at the gate, police at the gate with some pretty heavy weaponry as well, which is always a reminder that perhaps even some of the locals who are still coming to these mosques, even on a day like today, do so with a certain amount of fear as well.
Thanks, Alex. That is Alex Perrottet. He's joining us from the Masjid, the mosque in Ponsonby there. Police have confirmed the correct process was followed in issuing the firearms licence to the accused gunman. But what about the loopholes that existed in the law? Were they obvious, and could closing them have prevented the tragedy? Our Otago Southland reporter Timothy Brown spoke to a Dunedin resident who knows only too well the danger that firearms pose. He filed this report.
Selwyn Shanks has spent more than 30 years in the arms industry, and he knows the tragedy they can bring. He sold firearms to David Gray, who killed 13 people in Aramoana in 1990. He says last Friday's tragedy was sadly predictable. Previous law changes didn't go far enough, and loopholes were never closed.
If you go back to 84, there was a change in the law where individual firearms were not registered, and we probably did miss a beat then. Now we have no record of what's there. So, hindsight is a great master. If we had done that then, it may have stopped this incident. It may not have, because, this guy had an ACAT and he got round the law.
The most glaring issue is how easily an A-category firearm can be transformed into an E-category firearm, one deemed to be a military-style semi-automatic.
They say that they've adapted the firearm, and all they've done is put a bigger accessory in it. There's no mechanical change, there's no engineering to be done, you just buy it and pop it in.
That is, in layman's terms, the firearm Brenton Tarrant bought could be transformed into a high-capacity killing machine simply by ejecting the stock magazine and inserting a higher capacity one. Even worse, magazines were unregulated.
If someone came in wanting to buy a 30-shot 22 round magazine or a 30-shot centrefire round magazine, we would ask to see their E-category licence, because we knew that if that person put it in, it's only going to become an E-cat. But
that was only Mr Shanks' store's policy. Legally, anyone was allowed to buy magazines without a firearms licence, and online the situation is even murkier. Mr Shanks is backing the changes to the law, which include banning all sales of military-style semi-automatic weapons. But he has concerns about whether it's too late, as the country has now had no firearms registry for more than 30 years, and what is out there is, at best, a guess. In a statement today, the police backed the process followed in issuing the accused gunman's firearms licence. He provided 2 referees, who were both interviewed, and a vetting officer visited him at his home in Dunedin and interviewed him. But New Zealand's 240,000 licensed firearms owners are watched over by only about 260 full-time equivalent police staff. Police Association President Chris Cahill says clearly resourcing of arms officers will now have to increase.
I think it's totally fair to say that the priority from police hasn't necessarily been as strong as it should. There's such competition these days for police resources. The role of police has increased so much over the last 30 years. We certainly need to learn firearms, and the administration of it should be a priority given the risk they represent.
He supports the government's plans, but wants to go even further.
There needs to be a full review of the Firearms Act urgently, without a doubt. That was a recommendation of the Thorpe Report back in 1997, We don't want to ever look back with regret again on failing to take reforms that are going to make New Zealand safer. We can't make the mistake that was made back then.
Mr Cahill says 10 years between vetting is also too long and needs to be addressed. The Police Minister, Stuart Nash, says questions about staffing and resourcing are matters for the Police Commissioner. The licensing system will form part of the next phase of reform. In Dunedin, for Checkpoint, Timothy Brown.
It is about 6 minutes away from 6. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. As always, we would love to hear from you. You can text in on 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or send us an email, checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. An overloaded ferry capsized in the Tigris River near the Iraqi city of Mosul, killing nearly 100 people. As Reuters' Tamara Lindstrom reports, the ferry was packed with people celebrating the Kurdish New Year and Mother's Day.
Cries for help could be heard from bystanders on dry land as an overloaded ferry sank into the Tigris River in Iraq Thursday. Medics say at least 79 people were killed. Many of those victims, officials said, were women and children who could not swim.
I lost my wife and daughters. I am the only one that escaped.
The ferry went into the muddy waters north of Mosul in a recreational area popular with families, and according to one witness, was taking people to a man-made island. Another witness said he saw victims in the water begging for help, but could do nothing as he also cannot swim. Rescuers were able to save at least 12 passengers. Reconstruction of Mosul has barely begun after it was largely destroyed in a military campaign against the Islamic State in 2017. Residents who have returned to rebuild their homes say they feel abandoned by the central government. A source in the Civil Defense Authority said the boat had been loaded to twice its capacity, causing it to capsize.
After lengthy discussions, the European Union has unanimously agreed to extend the Brexit process beyond the March 29th deadline, but it's conditional on British MPs backing the Prime Minister Theresa May's controversial withdrawal deal next week. They've already rejected it twice. The BBC's Kevin Conley has been following developments from Brussels.
Theresa May spent an hour and a half addressing her fellow leaders and then taking their questions. She then withdrew from the room, leaving the EU 27 to shape their response to her request. They did not, in the end, agree to her proposal of a Brexit extension until the end of June. It will be May the 22nd if she gets her deal through Parliament next week, and April the 12th if she does not. If she fails, it will be up to the UK to come up with a new plan or leave the EU without a deal at that point. The President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, clearly felt the leaders had found the right balance of carrot and stick.
I'm really satisfied, especially that we have still open so many options. Frankly speaking, I was really sad for our meeting, and now I am much more optimistic.
It's already clear that the fresh thinking which would be required in the event of another failure at Westminster next week could include a longer delay to Brexit, although that's not being spelled out explicitly. In spite of the difficulties, the Prime Minister said her first choice would still be to see her deal pass next week.
I hope we can all agree we are now at the moment of decision, and I will make every effort to ensure that we are able to leave with a deal and move our country forward.
The crunch in the Brexit process, which never quite seems to come, is now very close. But a complete range of outcomes, including departure with a deal, without a deal, a longer extension and revocation of Brexit, remain at least theoretically possible.
That's Kevin Conley reporting there, and Theresa May says she'll now head back to Britain to work on MPs to pass her deal. She has said she does not want to seek another extension, as that would mean Britain taking part in EU elections, which she does not believe the British public wants. Time now for some of your feedback. Simon says, how is it possible to feel so simultaneously deeply sad yet so deeply happy with the strengths and weaknesses of the human race? And Michael has got in contact as well. He says the important thing out of this tragedy is that we need to keep a strong eye on any potential terrorist actor from any side or any position. Thanks for your feedback. This evening, 26 people who died in the mosque attacks are being buried in Christchurch. They are being buried at a communal burial at Lindwood Park Cemetery, and the media is being allowed to observe those burials this evening. Also today we had many hundreds, thousands of people gathering in the park at Hagley Park, just metres away from the mosque where this happened, one of the two mosques where this happened, the Dean's Avenue Mosque. 50 people lost their lives, obviously, in the shootings just 1 week ago. And an unprecedented national broadcast of the call to prayer plus 2 minutes of silence observed around the country. And as we are hearing from your feedback, people are both deeply saddened by the tragedy, but today there have been words really of strength and hope. The Imam who spoke there, one of the Imams who spoke at that commemoration said, "Hate will be undone and love will redeem us." Also, he mentioned today that the people who had died, these are his words too, they are not just martyrs of Islam, but martyrs of this country, New Zealand. And he called for unity, and the Imams there also called for white supremacy to be rejected.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui ko Susana Leia tawa tēnei. It's been a day of remembrance throughout the country today, 1 week since 50 people lost their lives in 2 Christchurch mosques. Tens of thousands of New Zealanders observed 2-minute silence after the Muslim call to prayer was broadcast live from Hagley Park in Christchurch. Amy Williams reports.
In Dunedin, an emotional haka was performed outside the Al Huda Mosque as a show of solidarity. Hundreds of people joined a circle of peace there, and in Wellington, Tauranga and Auckland, human chains formed around mosques. In central Auckland, students sang Waiata as about 500 gathered at the Masjid e Omar in Mount Roskill. The mosque's chairperson, Ahmed Bamji, says he was overwhelmed by the love.
There's the only word we remember now is thank you. And I just want to say thank you, all the New Zealanders, no matter what, which denomination, where they come from, what colour, creed and religion they come, we can only say thank you to you.
About 200 people turned out to the Al Mustafa Masjid in Otahuhu, where students from the nearby college brought a 20-metre-long paper chain covered in messages of love. And members of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and the Sikh, Christian and Jewish religions were among those who gathered at a Wellington mosque to show their support. Ko Amy Williams, aho.
Speaking to an estimated crowd of 20,000 in Hagley Park, the Imam of the Al Nur Mosque, Gamal Fouda, said those who were gunned down 7 days ago did not die in vain.
We are here in our hundreds and thousands unified for one purpose, that hate will be undone and love will redeem us.
Gamal Fouda also told the crowd that Muslims are taught by their Prophet Muhammad that you can never truly show gratitude to God if you are incapable of thanking your fellow man. He then went on to thank the people of New Zealand.
Thank you for your tears. Thank you for your haka. Thank you for your flowers. Thank you for your love and compassion.
Gamal Fouda. A whangarei man who lost friends in the massacre says the response of New Zealanders has been like beauty arising from ashes. Sher Khan says that on the first night after the massacre he was in despair, but he was quickly enfolded with warmth and support, first by work colleagues and the whangarei community, then by Christchurch people when he flew down for the funerals.
If the world follow this example, there will be no terrorism. If people don't believe it, come and see New Zealand. If you want to see the best of humanity, go and see Christchurch.
Sher Khan says news media in Muslim countries have been full of praise for the way New Zealanders have reacted to the attacks. The government's asking for time to work out the detail of its inquiry into the work of 5 agencies before the Christchurch shootings. The Human Rights Foundation has sent an open letter to the Attorney-General today, calling for the inquiry to be open and transparent. It wants the option of a ministerial inquiry ruled out, suggesting instead a coronial inquest independent of politics. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister says it's too early to rule anything in or out. The inquiry shouldn't be rushed, and Cabinet will take its time deciding its exact form and terms of reference. Nearly 1,500 people have contacted the police about handing in guns since a ban on military-style semi-automatic weapons and assault rifles was announced yesterday. The police have set up a website form and an 0800 number for people to use if they want to surrender a firearm or ask questions about the process. Assistant Commissioner Tusha Penny says 646 calls had been received as of an hour ago. Hundreds of people have also submitted forms, but some have been fake, which Ms Penny says has wasted valuable police time. She says in the current environment, that's unacceptable. In other news, 3 commercial fishermen were rescued this morning after their 10-metre boat sank near the Chatham Islands. They had mild hypothermia and cuts and bruises after perching on the bow for almost an hour. The boat was swamped by a wave about 30 kilometres northwest of the Chathams. The skipper dived to retrieve the distress beacon but couldn't reach it. A Rescue Coordination Centre spokesperson, Dave Wilson, says thankfully water pressure activated the beacon, which automatically sent a distress signal.
The nearest fishing vessel was about 9 nautical miles away, so it took them around 40 minutes to arrive on scene. In this particular case, having that float-free EPIRB distress beacon made the difference, we believe, at RCCNZ between rescuing survivors or not today.
Dave Wilson of the Rescue Coordination Centre. It's 6:05. The Japanese Super Rugby franchise, the Sunwolves, will be dropped at the end of next season. The governing body, SANZAR, has confirmed a 14-team round-robin competition from 2021. Its chief executive, Andy Marinos, says the Japanese Rugby Union has advised it's not in a position to financially underwrite the Sunwolves after 2020, and the structure is not the best pathway for developing their players. Under the new format in 2021, the current 3-conference system will be scrapped and finals involving the top 6 teams will run for 3 weeks. The Blues coaching staff are hoping the presence of 4 All Blacks on their bench will pay off in tonight's Super Rugby clash against the Highlanders in Auckland. Props Ofa Tu'ungafasi and Karl Tu'unukuafe, lock Patrick Tuipulotu and flanker Dalton Papali'i have all been named on the bench for the game at Eden Park. Assistant coach Tom Coventry says they have rewarded those who performed well in their win over the Sunwolves last time out with starting spots, but hopes having a strong bench could be the difference.
They'll bring something off the bench for us this week. The boys that performed against the Sunwolves were good, and they've been rewarded with another 2 starting. But in the modern day game, it's a 23-man sport, so hopefully those boys will add some value this week off the bench.
Tom Coventry. And the women's Black Sticks will be searching for their 5th Pro League victory tonight when they face China in Wuzhen Hockey Stadium at 9 o'clock. That's the news.
Hello, I'm Professor Robert Yawning.
On the podcast hour, 2 shows fronted by celebrities. David Williams covers classical music for kids, and there's one from talk show host Conan O'Brien.
Golly, hi, my name is Jeff Goldblum, and I feel blank about being Conan O'Brien's friend.
Plus karaoke contests on container ships, and the show that's just one man going for a walk. The podcast hour, Saturday after the midday news, here on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow for Northland to Taranaki, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country. Fine, but areas of cloud or fog morning and night. Isolated showers mainly during the afternoon and evening, some possibly heavy about Coromandel and Western Bay of Plenty. For Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, fine spells, isolated showers mainly inland. Whanganui to Wellington also wide upper, fine apart from areas of morning cloud. For Nelson, Marlborough, Canterbury and Otago, fine but areas of cloud or fog morning and night. Isolated afternoon and evening showers about the ranges and foothills. Bulla and Westland, cloudy periods today, mainly fine tomorrow. Fiordland, cloudy periods with a few light showers. Southland, fine apart from areas of fog tomorrow morning. And at the Chathams, cloudy periods with 1 or 2 showers. It's 6:08. You're with RNZ National.
Thanks, Susanna. And this is Checkpoint. I'm Lisa Owen. And a week on from the mosque massacres, 4 mosques in Auckland are currently holding prayer sessions, and they have thrown open their doors to the public. Throughout the day today, there have been scenes of unity and kindness in direct contrast to the attacks that happened on this day last week. Let's go back now to our reporter in Christchurch, Nita Blake-Pearson. Nita.
Kia ora, Lisa. Yes, I'm here in Hagley Park, where earlier today thousands of New Zealanders turned up to show unity to the Muslim community who were gathered here for their Friday prayers. The event took place, as you say, just 1 week after the massacre of 50 people at the Deans Avenue and Linwood mosques. Our reporter Andrew McRae was there.
The Prime Minister spoke directly to the Muslim community just before prayers started.
The Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, "The believers in their mutual kindness, compassion and sympathy are just like one body. When any part of the body suffers, the whole body feels pain. New Zealand mourns with you. We are one."
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
Hundreds of Muslims were front and centre facing the Al Noor Mosque as Friday prayers started. This was not like normal Friday prayers. They were outside in the park directly opposite their Deans Avenue Mosque, where exactly 1 week ago many of their brothers and sisters were indiscriminately gunned down. Al Noor Mosque Imam Gamal Fuda, who survived the attacks, told the crowd the Muslim community and all New Zealanders are heartbroken, but not broken.
Last Friday, I stood in this mosque and saw hatred and rage in the eyes of the terrorists who killed and martyred 50 innocent people and broke the hearts of millions around the world. Today, from the same place, I look out and I see the love and compassion in the eyes of thousands of fellow New Zealanders.
The Imam praised this country and its people.
We have shown that New Zealand is unbreakable and that the world can see in us an example of love and unity. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات.
He called those who died martyrs of this nation.
They are alive, rejoicing with their Lord. They were the best of us, taken from us on the best of days, in the best of places, and performing the best of actions. And they are not just martyrs of Islam, but they are martyrs of this nation, New Zealand. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Thousands flocked to the park to express their support, to grieve and observe 2 minutes silence together. Michelle Collins says the Imam's message would help unify the people of Christchurch.
It was very appropriate and thankful of everybody, covered everybody, and thanking them, and I think it helped in the unity that's here in Christchurch. I did think that he acknowledged everyone and that we really must maintain this as well, was my thought on it.
Stephen Klink agreed completely with the Imam.
It summed it up completely, my thoughts too. I mean, we are heartbroken but not broken, and from here on we just have to address certain things, and I think we have to start at ourselves, just looking at ourselves, our thoughts, and being fearful of anything that is foreign.
Gerald Raymond says the event was an important part of the healing process.
Everyone's still grieving. I know it's been really weird at work this week. Everyone's just felt quite disconnected and a bit unreal. So I just think it's part of the process that we have to come and listen to things like this and just reflect and take the time to work through it however we can.
Natalie Cusack says she felt driven to attend the event and show that love is stronger than hate.
A very strong compulsion and a feeling to be here, to be among everybody else and show that we're all standing together, and it's a wonderful feeling of everybody drawing together and making a mockery of the hatred.
A march for love will be held in the city tomorrow morning, travelling from Hagley Park along Ralston Avenue to the Wall of Flowers and then back to the park. In Christchurch for Checkpoint, Ko Andrew McRae-Tene.
Well, a large contingent of Australian Muslims have felt compelled to be in New Zealand in the immediate aftermath of these massacres to support their Muslim brothers and sisters in Christchurch, despite many of them having never met them before. One of those is Faris. He's from Sydney, and I spoke to him earlier today at the gathering here in Hagley Park.
We don't know anybody here, didn't know of anybody here, but I was sitting back home in Australia, and when I heard the news, the first thing I wanted to do was get here. We had to be here, just to stand by these people, you know, to go and talk to them, to let them know that we are feeling with them, we are hurting like they are. So that's what brought us here. You know, it wasn't, I don't know anybody here, but in our religion, the beautiful part of our religion is it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood. So, you know, a Muslim sister is my sister and a Muslim brother is my brother, whether we know each other or not. So it's just unbelievable, some of the stories we've heard, you know, visiting the hospitals, seeing the people that are injured, and just hearing how highly spirited they are after such an ordeal. It just puts the feeling on another level.
Would you mind sharing with me maybe one of those stories that you have found to be really inspirational? Or?
Just, you know, I'll give you a little bit of what one brother said to me, and that was, you know, do not let the religion go because of this. Stick together, make it grow even more. Let people see the beautiful side of this religion, not what we've seen. This is a brother that was shot in the head, shot in the back, and this is what he was telling me. And like, I'm talking to you now and my hairs on my body is standing. It's just unbelievable.
Do you think today, with so many people here already and so many more expected, that is part of growing the religion, growing the understanding, and people really seeing what Islam's all about?
Look, I don't think they'll understand obviously what it's really about until they read the Quran itself, but what I think today would be really good for is anyone who has any question about our beautiful religion is to ask somebody, to go into a mosque. The mosques are all open for everybody, and as you saw, the first man to greet the gunman was, "Hello, brother." You know, I don't think you need to say any more than that. I just think people should ask about it before they make any comments about it. And yeah, it's a beautiful religion when you read into it. So.
And what do you hope today's specific event will be about, or what will happen, or what people will take away?
Well, what I hope would happen is this Islamophobia that we've been living with now, you know, for over 10 years. It takes a little bit of that edge away from people not having that unknown, maybe knowing now that look at our religion, it brings people together. Yes, it took this awful tragedy, but look how, I mean, New Zealanders, wow, what beautiful people, police force, everyone that we have dealt with here. I've been down at the crisis centre with a lot of the families, and the support that the government has given there. Wow, you guys have got a remarkable Prime Minister, and obviously, you know, she leads from the top and everyone follows through, the police officers, the social workers, the volunteers. It's just phenomenal. I wish, you know, we had that kind of stuff, and I believe that's what this will bring out now is the goodness in it.
Well, the Australian boxer and former NRL player Anthony Mundine is one of those in Christchurch, where he visited the wounded in hospital and attended services for those who died last Friday. He's a three-time world boxing champion and dedicated Muslim. He spoke to reporters here in Hagley Park near the Al Noor Mosque, where 42 people were killed.
Through God's will, some are still here, and for them to live through that and see dead bodies and seeing people being murdered, I wouldn't wish that upon your worst enemy.
Where were you when you heard about it, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, I was back home, man. Actually, my son come and told me about it, and then showed me some footage. But I thought he was playing like a prank on me, and it seemed pretty surreal. The footage, I thought it was a video game, and then when I come to realise that it was the truth, my heart just melted, man, and I just felt I had to be here and show my support, show my aid to the people.
Do you think something's changed afterwards?
I just want to give a big rap to Jacinta Ardern. I think she's led from the forefront, from the top really, with her compassion, with her empathy, and her class, and the way she's handled this. About playing the Edan today, midday, the whole country, mourning for 2 minutes. She's done everything. She couldn't do anything more, to show that respect. And I take my hat off to her, man.
Yeah, you seem to have been seriously sort of moved by the Prime Minister's actions in this country.
I just think it's the first leader that I've saw be a true leader. You know what I mean? I think the whole world can, leaders can really take a leaf out of her book and try to lead what she does. This is the first time I saw a PM lead with her heart and do the right thing rather than be led a different way.
And what did you find? What did you say when you went up and saw some of your brothers up in the hospital?
I just gave them my salams, gave them my salams and embraced them and showed them, stay strong. I just try to uplift them in order to stay strong and whatnot. But it's hard when you see somebody go through something so horrific and mentally disturbing in what they went through. So it's going to take a lot of time to heal, but as long as they got their faith in Allah, that inshallah they'll overcome that.
A 13-year-old Syrian boy wounded at the Al Noor Mosque on Deans Avenue says he wishes his brother and father had survived instead of him. Saeed Mustafa's 16-year-old brother Hamza and his father Khalid were killed in the massacre last week. Saeed and his mother spoke to the media this morning to thank the community for their support. Our reporter Madison Reedy was there.
A shooting might happen. He was saying that a shooting might happen, so we need to stay under the tree. 1 week ago today, Saeed Mustafa's life changed forever. He saw something no 13-year-old boy ever should. He saw his older brother die. He watched as Hamza called their mother to say his last words, while they waited, bleeding, in the car park of the Al Noor Mosque. He can still vividly recall the terror attack that took two of his loved ones from him.
He shot my brother first, and he shot me. I don't know why he's shooting, and when I'm running, I jump like a little bit, and he shot me in my leg, and I throw down under the cars. After that, I'm just sitting, and I'm seeing Hamza is my brother. He can't hear me. I'm just waiting.
Saeed is still in a wheelchair after being shot in his right leg. He buried his father and brother on Wednesday. Saeed says he wishes they survived instead of him.
I'm feeling like if I did and my brother and my father is still alive, it will be better.
Saeed says he will return to the Deans Avenue Mosque when he is healthy to help him move on. He says it doesn't make sense to sit around and be sad. The country stood still this afternoon for 2 minutes of silence to remember Zaid's family members and the other 48 men and women who were killed in the attack. Zaid's mother Salwa says the outpouring of support that she's received in the wake of the attack proves the Muslim religion is about love and peace. I asked Salwa if she had anything to say about what had happened to her family. She addressed the gunman and his supporters directly.
To the person who did that, and to all people who are supporting him and have the same mind, if they think that they're destroying us, they are wrong. What happened make us stronger? Because we are not terrorists. People say that Islam is terrorist religion, or Muslims are terrorists, and now the whole world saw who is the terrorist. We are not terrorists. Muslims are people of peace and love, not terrorists. And I hope the whole world now can understand the real Islam, the reality of Islam.
Salwa Mustafa says her husband was a wonderful father and a loving man. They moved their family from Jordan to Christchurch to be safe and for a better education. Now Zaid says he feels unsafe, but he is thankful to the country for making him feel loved. In Christchurch for Checkpoint, Madison Reedy.
Well, that's all from us here at Hagley Park. It's been a very emotional day. Back to you in the studio, Lisa.
Thank you. That is Nita Blake-Pearson, our reporter in Christchurch, and it has been a week of mixed emotions. It started with terror and cruelty, but what followed was in many cases incredible acts of bravery, shared grief, displays of unity, kindness and compassion. Many of these feelings were reflected in the speeches today at Hagley Park, with one imam saying, "Love will redeem us. New Zealand is unbreakable." Our team would like to say thank you to all those people who have shared their stories with us this week under the most trying of circumstances. You can look back at those stories and today's program online, including the 2 minutes of silence. That'll be on our webpage, and the call to prayer. So a week since the terror attacks, we look back in what in some ways may seem like a lifetime. Here are some of the scenes and sounds from this week.
A shooting might happen. It was saying that a shooting might happen, so we need to stay under the tree. Not everywhere.
We are currently dealing with an unprecedented situation in New Zealand. We have multiple fatalities. At this point, I can't say how many, but it is significant.
Please stay away from the central city until further notice. All council buildings in the central city are in lockdown.
This is one of New Zealand's darkest days.
So, sir, can you tell me, where were you when you saw him?
Yeah, I was giving the khutbah, and he entered Al Masjid from the back door, and he started shooting people in the corridor. And then I was hiding inside the pulpit, and then he was shooting everybody, and the people ran from both sides of the mosque, and they broke the windows and ran away. Why all this happened? Why hatred is making people do this?
And you've got blood on your hands.
I have the guy of that lady. He been shot in his back, in his back of his leg. So I just stopped the blood being bleeding, and I just when I see him he start shooting outside the masjid, I just run away and jump from the fence to the neighbor.
Can you please call to police and send police here? Someone is killing us.
At the Deans Avenue Mosque, we now know that 41 people have lost their lives. And at the Linwood Mosque, 7 have lost their lives.
He is not here. He's not with us. He's not alive.
And when people were praying, they weren't expecting it. These are strong men that would have protected themselves and their families, but they had their backs turned, praying. They were only praying.
You may have chosen us, but we utterly reject and condemn you.
At a time like this, it's really important for everyone to come together, and you know, that's what we do. We support each other, we show love, we show respect, and These people are all part of our community.
It's not just the Muslim community which is here. If you look around, it's basically every race is here to sort of address the situation. This could have happened anywhere. It could happen out open in a cafeteria. So it's just good to see that everyone's coming together and addressing the situation.
I think, just having the opportunity of being surrounded not just by Muslims but everyday New Zealanders.
This is the New Zealand that I always value. This is the New Zealand that I want the world to see it. This is New Zealanders. You just touched me inside. And all I want to say is thank you very much, New Zealand. I will always remember.
Today I'm announcing that New Zealand will ban all military-style semi-automatic weapons. We will also ban all assault rifles.
I'm here at the back of the mosque where the body of Haji Musa Patel has been taken out of the mosque and into the funeral van.
حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح.
Brothers and sisters in Islam, brothers and sisters in humanity, brothers and sisters in New Zealand, we are broken-hearted, but we are not broken. To the families of the victims, your loved ones did not die in vain. Their blood has watered the seeds of hope.
Expressions of kindness and compassion across the country as tens of thousands marked 1 week since the Christchurch massacre. The Imam of the Al Noor Mosque, Gamal Fuda, told the crowd of 20,000 in Hagley Park that those who were gunned down did not die in vain. He said the Muslim community is united with New Zealand in one purpose, that hate will be undone and